Hey Sarah, nice to see you.
Hello there.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just finishing my lunch here and then I'll go camera on. But I'm doing well.
No problem. Hopefully you had a good time away and settling in now.
Well, I'm still acting deputy director through this week, so I am kind of in between the two worlds at the moment. I'll feel more settled back into Habitat Division next week.
Mm, you're sad. Hey Tiffany.
Hi, I'm glad you're back or
Thank
almost
you. Hi,
back.
Tiffany.
Hi.
Mm, Thanks Tiffany last week for sending stuff out when I was gone. I appreciate that help.
Of course.
Andy, do you know if Jessica is planning to join today?
Yes, Jessica's going to, and she's going to speak towards the engagement part. So
Oh, super.
I'm gonna review the OARs or the revisions that were approved earlier this year by the committee. And
Yeah.
then she's going to speak real quickly about engagement. And then we're going to go into with Spencer to present on the new language.
Yeah, super. Okay, then I'm just gonna be kind of in the
Yep.
background, camera off, just kind of catching back up with everything going on in your committee and with the program. So I'll just kind of be
Perfect.
lurking back here.
No problem. That's what we kind of figured. I confirmed with
Yeah.
Jessica this morning too.
Thank you.
Yep. No worries. Hey, Mark.
Hey Andy, this is Mark. I'm wondering if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
I'm not
can't-
sure I can hear you though.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you, but
So I'm gonna call in for the
hey, Jessica.
Hi, all.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Andy.
Hey, Chad.
Give it a few more minutes and we'll get started.
Sounds good. Looks like we're just waiting for Andrew and Courtney here to hop in. Joe, Brian, Chad, Scott.
Sorry, no current meeting.
I didn't get any notice, Chad, that Courtney or Andrew was not attending.
Hey
today.
Andy, I tried calling in and the conference ID number doesn't seem to work.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mark. Can you hear us, Mark? I text him right now, real quick.
So, Andy, is Mark unable to hear us?
He is. Let me just resend him the invite right now. Just a minute here. I'm just adding Mark right now by phone.
Hello.
Hey, Mark, we can hear you. Can you hear us? He's on the phone.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'll get back on the visual here, so thank you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Mark. Chad, I will hand it back to you. We have Andrew here. We're just, I don't see Courtney, but we do have a quorum here for today's discussion.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andy. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 12:03. We'll call to order our regular meeting of the PFA Mitigation Advisory Committee. We'll begin with a roll call. Andy, if you could lead us through that, please.
Yes, I'll call your name. Please respond in the affirmative if you're present. Chad Washington.
Here.
Joe Liebezeit.
Here.
Scott Lightcap.
Here.
Courtney Greisel. Fran Caparata.
Here.
Andrew Perky.
Here.
Mark Stern.
Here.
Mark Grenbremer. Jennifer Weichel, or Kate Thompson in place for Jennifer Weichel.
Yep. Kate Thompson for Jennifer Weichel here.
Kate Wells. Sam on the call. Chris Allen, he's no longer. Is anyone filling in for Chris Allen, Fish Wildlife Service, on the call yet? Okay. Sarah Gregory.
Here.
All right. Hand it back to you, Chad.
Great. Thank you, Andy. So the agenda was distributed to the committee members prior to the meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? All right, I'm seeing thumbs up, so I'll move to approve the agenda unless anybody has any comments to make. Okay, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the meeting minutes from our prior meeting in May. Has everybody had a chance to review those meeting minutes? Any questions, requests for changes? Okay, we will consider that approved. And Andy, I think that brings us to agenda item 3, public comment. Did we get any requests for public comment prior to the meeting?
We had no request for public comment prior to the meeting, Chad.
All right, well, we can open it up if there's anyone from the public that has joined us.
Yes, at this time, if anyone's on the call now, this is an opportunity to provide some public comment. Please feel free to raise your hand or come on the camera so we can see you. All right, Chad, I don't have any on my end. No requests for public comment at this time.
All right. Well, we have it on our agenda at 12:10. We're only a few minutes prior to that, so I think it's safe to say that we won't be receiving any. So with that, Andy, I will hand it over to you and the rest of the ODFW staff on the call for the grant OAR revisions.
All right, thank you. Let me get my notes screen up and I will start going through this slideshow here. Chad, are you able to see what's on screen right now?
Yep.
You give me just one more second here so I can see you guys, get everyone on my screen here. All right. Well, afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to review our recommended revisions to the Private Forest Accord Grant Administrative Rules that the committee previously approved earlier this year unanimously at our January meeting. After this brief recap, we'll then get into the discussion of the additional revisions that we're recommending. So to recap a bit, you'll see on screen here the short list of revisions we proposed earlier this year. The revisions to the OARs work to streamline the grant process by combining urgent and regular grants into a single pathway and removing outdated rules. The program name no longer includes mitigation to reduce conflicting messaging. We also added flexibility for grantees to begin work upon receiving an award letter post committee approval, even before agreements are finalized, which is a major improvement. So following commission approval next year, when we send a letter out, grantees are able to start work immediately instead of waiting an extra 6 months roughly. In addition, acquisition language was revised earlier this year to mirror the statute and better align with legislative intent. We've introduced flexibility for minor project changes under 10% without needing commission approval. Lastly, we clarified and added definitions such as covered species to better align with program goals and provide more clarity. That said, these revisions were proposed to the committee again earlier this year and unanimously recommended for approval to the Fish and Wildlife Commission, which we plan to present at next month at their August meeting. Since January, we're now recommending a few additional revisions to the rule package ahead of the commission meeting to approve these new rules, as demonstrated in attachment 3 that's been shared with all of you and posted online at pfagrants.com. Before we delve into the additional rule recommendations, I'd like to first hand it off to Jessica to speak to the engagement of these rules since our January committee meeting. Jessica, I'll hand it over.
Thanks so much, Andy. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to provide an update on some of the tribal engagement that I conducted since the last time we all met. So I've reached out to the tribes to have conversations about the proposed OAR revisions that you all recommended back in January. This included email and phone calls, as well as providing informational updates to the Tribal Natural Resource Cabinet. And just during these discussions, there was no opposition expressed. So I just wanted to relay that information to you all. Thanks, Andy.
All right, thanks, Jessica. So I have Spencer here on the call. I am now going to transition here. So let's see, get the button right. All right, so we'll get into these revisions in detail shortly, but let's first want to provide some context of the new language and why we're bringing it forward to the committee consideration. So I'm going to hand it off to Spencer to continue, our Deputy Habitat Administrator. Spencer.
Thank you, Andy. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Spencer Sawaski. I'm the Habitat Division Deputy Administrator, and I also manage our water program. I've got a background in hydrology and trying to quantify how much water should be in stream to optimize fish and wildlife resources, and also have some experience doing flow restoration work, working with water users to put water back in stream during these small critical windows for fish and wildlife. So I'm going to attempt to give a really high-level overview on all things flow restoration in about 3 slides, and then happy to answer questions after that. So I'll start with providing sort of the ecological justification for flow restoration, give a quick overview of the current status of flows within Oregon, and then briefly touch on the different mechanisms that people typically employ for flow restoration in the West. So why flow restoration? The short answer is that flow, water quantity and quality are oftentimes a primary limiting factor for recovery of listed species in the West, particularly in Oregon. Water provides basic habitat as well as water quality implications. So the short answer is that as water flow reduces over the course of the summertime, naturally, that reduction can be exacerbated by illegal water use. As that volume of water reduces, the available habitat reduces as well, as indicated by the figures on the left or the pictures, which is an extreme example. So as that water reduces, there's less volume, there's less livable space for fish, there's more competition, there's less ability for them to migrate and find suitable habitat. So that's one issue with low flows. The other are water quality implications. So as that volume of water reduces over the course of the summer, and again, due to diversions, the thermal mass of that water reduces as well. So there's less water, and so it takes less energy to warm up that water. And what we are typically focused on in terms of water quality is water temperature. There are other water quality considerations as well because there's less dilution, but the focus is primarily on water temperature. And as that flow declines, we oftentimes see some exceedances in water temperature criteria. So available habitat and water temperature are the two big implications of having too many straws in the streams, if you will. So now I'll give a quick overview of the current status of low flows in Oregon. Andy, if you don't mind advancing one slide, please. So there's a lot here, and I'll try to briefly walk through them. The figure on the left is depicting a ratio of the expected flow to natural flow for subwatersheds within Oregon during the late summer that sort of coincides with the peak of the irrigation season, so July through September. Expected flow is the amount of water that is predicted to be in stream after everyone has withdrawn their legally allotted amount of water. Natural flow is what it sounds like. It's the amount of water that would be there in the absence of any withdrawals or upstream water resources infrastructure like dams, reservoirs, etc. So a ratio of 1 means the expected flow is equivalent to the natural flow. There's no diversions. A ratio of 0.8 means that about 20% of the flow is allocated to out of stream uses and 80% is left in stream. And that category, the 80 to 100% of water left in stream, is depicted in the blue watersheds here. And that corresponds to where the scientific literature currently lands in terms of good ecological balance of flows. When we start to see expected flows decline below 80% of the natural flow, you begin to have sort of cascading ecological impacts. And that's depicted in all the subwatersheds that are not blue. So the hotter colors, the reds, the oranges, etc. The reds are the extreme example where the ratio is 0 to 0.25, indicating that upwards of 100% of the stream flow is diverted. And of course, in that case, we have major ecological implications. So the issue here is widespread, as depicted on the left. The figure on the right is similar but slightly different. This is illustrating the flow deficit, so quantifying the amount of water that we predict needs to be put back in stream in order to achieve that 80 to 100% balance of natural flow. The takeaway here is that flow deficits due to out of stream consumptive uses is really a widespread issue across Oregon, and there's a real need, in our opinion, for advancing flow restoration, and that's what I'll talk about next. Andy, if you don't mind advancing one. So I'm going to talk now about the typical flow restoration tools that flow restoration practitioners employ across the West. But before I do, I just want to make it very clear that all of these projects are based on voluntary agreements between water users and practitioners of flow restoration. And by water users, it can be all water users, but what we're primarily talking about here is irrigators. And also, the important thing here is that these agreements are all based on market-based estimates of flow. And again, they're all market-based valuations of the water. And again, all voluntary. I've binned the two different project categories into those that involve the state and those that do not. And so the state-involved agreements are those that go through the Oregon Water Resources Department. And those include things like leasing, be it either temporary leases where an irrigator legally puts their water in stream for one irrigation season, all the way to a permanent transfer of that water right legally in stream. I've also included in that category, because it goes through the state, conserved water projects. So these are projects where irrigators, typically in partnership with a conservation output, do a conserved water project that increases the efficiency of their water use or how they convey water from their point of diversion to their on-farm location. So a really classic example is someone that previously was using a an inefficient irrigation technique like flood irrigation, and they converted that to a higher efficiency water application like a center pivot, the figure or the image here on the slide. In that case, some of that saved water that is saved between the two different irrigation techniques can be legally protected in stream through the Oregon Water Resources Department. So that's sort of the state involved processes for putting that water in stream. But there's a whole other suite of tools that people use and agreements people use to put water in stream that don't involve the state. These are just agreements between a flow restoration group and an irrigator or a group of irrigators. And examples that have been employed in Oregon are minimum flow agreements. There's a great example on the Lostine River in Wallowa County where a group of irrigators work with Trout Unlimited to maintain a specific flow value throughout the course of the summer that doesn't go through the state. And forbearance agreements are agreements between an irrigator and a group to just cease irrigation on a certain date and then be compensated for that lack of agricultural production. The key here is that every stream and watershed and irrigator is unique, and different flow restoration techniques are appropriate for different circumstances. And the flexibility allowed by having these different tools really allows for innovation, as well as oftentimes increases the cost effectiveness of these projects. And that is all I have. I'm happy to answer questions or have a conversation with folks.
All right, thanks, Spencer. That's kind of where I'm going for the last slide here. So as you see on screen, here's the primary revisions to the previously approved rule package. These are found in attachment 3 of the staff report and what we're asking for consideration today for the committee. They're related to a new statute that requires water project recipients to utilize established best management practices for community engagement. And as Spencer said, we're here and happy to have an open discussion at this time when it comes to this. So I'm going to hand it back to Chad, but I see he just went off camera. Maybe a bad time. Oh, there he goes. I'm going to hand it back to Chad.
Great, thanks, Andy. And thanks for your time, Spencer. Is there any questions from the committee regarding types of projects or the benefits provided? Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thank There we go. Great presentation, Spencer. Thank you. I support, maximum flexibility in terms of the types of transactions that generate water for in-stream flow restoration. And so having the agreements that don't go through OWRD be eligible, I think is a good thing. I would just reiterate what we all talked about in the spring when we reviewed the projects down in the Illinois Valley, is that cost effectiveness is going to be really important for us or for the group to consider as these proposals come in, not just in the abstract, but also in broader context of what their strategy is on a stream reach and what opportunities they have to go from, say, an initial pilot project to achieving 80% or something close to that Spencer highlighted on the map. As we saw in the spring, the proposals in the Illinois were related to improving irrigation efficiency and then dedicating the water savings to in-stream flow. And they were very expensive in terms of the amount of water that was generated, as well as the relative impact on the hydrology of the system that would result from that added flow. It was fairly small amount of water on fairly medium to large streams in the valley there. So just encourage the group, since I am leaving the committee here at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of September, to just really give critical thought to cost effectiveness. What's it costing to get the units of water, and how does that water relate to the goals of the state and others for flow restoration on that reach?
Great comment, Andrew, and also the goals of the PFA mitigation program, first and foremost, right? Although those may be in alignment with ODFW priorities at times, they need to kind of be superseding. If it doesn't meet the MAC goal, then that kind of end of the story.
Yeah, I would say, Chad, just to add on that, that the ODFW or the basic ecological impact needs to be the floor by which then you assess what the impact is on PFA objectives. Because if the amount of water we're talking about being restored isn't moving the needle much on the hydrology of the system, it's hard to imagine it's going to help the species that are covered. But again, considering how does this fit with a longer term strategy? Is this the first piece of a puzzle? Do they have other agreements teed up that are going to get to that higher threshold of flow restoration and then therefore benefit the species that we're interested in here?
That's great. Andrew, I, again, really appreciate the comments, especially given your extensive background in this work. Thank you for that. Scott, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on what Andrew just brought up. Could we go back to the maps, the priority maps? Andy, is that possible?
Yes, I'll do that right now. Sorry, I just stopped sharing screen to have the discussion. Give me a minute here.
Okay, it's not critical. I just, when they, it looked like there was a lot of potential work represented in those maps and geographically. And so I was curious if Spencer or Jessica, has ODF&W taken a look at this with priorities in mind in terms of, okay, given this daunting picture, where is the most important place to go or the top 5? And what is your degree of optimism? Kind of what Andrew was alluding to, how much, uplift would you get from any given project in that area? That's that kind of stuff. Just looking at this seems like it's kind of overwhelming. So I'm hoping there's a finer pen that has refined it a bit.
Yep. Great question, Scott. We have done a kind of a secondary analysis, which is part of our broader aquatic habitat prioritization work that I'm not sure if this group has heard about before. It's a flow restoration focused component of that aquatic habitat prioritization. So it takes into account not just this water availability information that we see depicted here, but also things like cold water refugia and the different species diversity and things like that, and further prioritizes these subwatersheds. So we have a draft version of that, and Bobby, who's on the call here with me, is working this summer to help finalize that based off of district biologist direct input. So we expect to have that flow restoration prioritization product available late summer, early fall.
Okay, would that be something that your PFA biologists are familiar with and could bring to bear when we meet, to review projects every spring?
That's the expectation, along with OWEB and OWRD granting opportunities for flow restoration.
Perfect, thank you.
Spencer, with these kinds of projects, is there any other controversies or opinions? Are they widely accepted? Who are the people that are going to be supportive of this, and who are people that might be questioning these types of projects?
Yeah, great question. I'd say, and Andrew might be able to answer this as well, because I know he has experience doing flow restoration work. Typically, the conservation groups are supportive. I mean, this is oftentimes the primary limiting factor for these fish. So, before you focus on in-stream habitat, meaning large wood, things like that, you have to have the stream flow there. Otherwise, the fish can't survive. A lot of individual irrigators are supportive of it because it allows them to diversify their, economic portfolio, which is great. I think when flow restoration became popular in Oregon, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, there was initial opposition from the Farm Bureau and some of the larger ag policy groups, but I think that's waned over time. A lot of their actual irrigators and agricultural interests have adopted flow restoration just because of the diversity it allows for them. I don't see widespread opposition anymore. It's more beneficial to the individual irrigators, and people accept that. I don't know if you have anything to add, Andrew.
Yeah, first, thanks for making me feel younger, Spencer, because it was 30 years ago that this stuff started. And I was there. Yeah, there was an effort, in Oregon Water Trust started in January of 94. And in the 95 session, there was an effort to repeal Oregon's In-Stream Water Rights Act. It actually passed the House of Representatives and went to the Senate and was killed in the state Senate. So initially there was strong opposition to it. I would say yes, that in general, the support from the agricultural community is there broadly, given the voluntary nature of these agreements. I would say similar, Chad, to the discussions we've had about keeping timberland in production. The ag community really is resisting the idea that productive agricultural land will come out of agricultural production as a result of these deals. Now, not all of these transaction types would result in that happening. In fact, in some parts of the state, particularly on the west side, you could have dry land production even if you were to permanently transfer the water. You certainly have less production if you weren't able to irrigate, but you could still have some. So I would say that opposition would probably be strongest for the permanent purchase and transfer in stream off of ag land to the river from some of the ag groups if we start seeing those kinds of deals. Now, conversely, those are typically the most cost-effective agreements. Those are the ones that are going to get you the best bang for the buck. And so what you're seeing is those types of deals are happening on marginal agricultural land or in areas where urban growth is extending into previously irrigated lands, like in Central Oregon, for example, around Redmond and Bend. And in those instances, there's houses there, so it's not like you're enabling land coming out of production. It's already come out of production.
That's really helpful, Andrew. Thanks for that. It strikes me that some of these projects are actually helping agriculture stay on the landscape through more efficient irrigation. So to your point, it's hard to paint all of these project types with one broad brush. Joe, I see you have your hand up. Spencer, if your comment is related to this, we can take that first. But if it's something new, then we'll go to Joe.
It is related to that prior comment. Just to piggyback on Andrew's point, the intent here is not to take lands out of production. It's to just put water back in stream during these small critical windows of time. For a lot of Northeast Oregon, for example, that critical window is just the month of August. And so the tools are innovating of how we can put this water back in stream. There's split season leasing now, which is permanently allowed by OWRD, which allows the irrigator to irrigate during the first half or 2/3 of the irrigation season and still be productive and then be compensated for that last month of the irrigation season when they put the water in stream when the fish need it most. So there are lots of different tools out there.
Just to clarify on that comment, sorry, Chad, the allowance for temporary split season is permanently in statute now, right? You're not allowed to permanently split your water right in half.
Correct.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah,
there's no longer a sunset on split season leasing. Okay. So you can temporarily split your water right to leave water in stream for periods, I believe, of up to 5 years, Spencer.
5.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chad.
Great. Joe, you've got your hand up. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, thank you. I could see some concern within the conservation community regarding, when Spencer brought up the example of flood irrigation versus pivot. In Eastern Oregon, we work a lot with partners where flood irrigation is really important for birds. And so if you're going to take that water off the landscape and put it in stream, in certain geographies at certain times a year, you're going to definitely impact waterfowl and bird production, which will have an impact on not just some of the conservation groups that are concerned about avian and bird conservation, but also, duck hunters and things like that. So I just think it's important to point that out. And obviously we want water for both the fish and the covered species as well as the birds. So maybe I'd love to hear, I don't know, Spencer, if you know of any examples where anyone on the group here knows of any examples where it'd be able to kind of like balance that need, just regarding the wildlife and the fish. I know that there's obviously agricultural and all that too, but just kind of wonder if you have any examples of how that can be balanced.
Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, Joe, I think what you described there is most relevant in the Klamath, just because of the historic hydrology of the Klamath, Upper Klamath Basin. Not that there aren't other areas in the state where that is also true, but just given the large, vast historical wetlands that were there that have been then converted into agriculture, they're, flood irrigation has created tailwater that's resulted in a habitat for birds. And there's one example that just was completed. The Fish and Wildlife Service paid for the transfer of a surface water right from the Wood River, and also I'm forgetting the tributary of the Wood River that's in that Wood River Valley there, but converted those water rights in stream. It's no, it's not the Sprague. It's a small tributary of the Wood in the Wood River Valley. And basically those water rights were converted in stream on those stream reaches, so benefiting fish that are in those creeks instead of being diverted through the lake and then into the reclamation's project below the lake to deliver water to Tule Lake and to provide bird habitat for birds at Tule Lake National Wildlife Refuge in California. This was a complicated deal and frankly a bit of a hydrologic stretch given the distance and a legal stretch given the two states that it occurred in, but it gives an example of how you can benefit both the species in the river, and then when the river would dissipate into a wetland complex, benefit the wetland as well.
Thanks. I think that's.
Sorry, just under quick reply. Just thanks for that, and yeah, also Malheur and Lake Abert are two other geographies that in Oregon that have the same kind of issues. But yeah, thank you for that.
You are correct. In fact, we're my consulting group is working with Lake Abert right now, and that's a complicated hydrologic puzzle there.
Spencer, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to throw out the Shiwaukan as an example as well, where that Lake Abert, where it is critical to still maintain that flood irrigation. I was just going to add that there's a timing component to this too. You can still allow for that, historical flood irrigation during the initial nesting season that infiltrates the shallow groundwater. Stop flood irrigation midsummer, that water is no longer as needed for nesting at that point, and it's providing that base flow influx late in the summer. So it can, based on timing, it can be refined to be beneficial for multiple different species.
Thanks, Spencer. Yeah, I think it's just helpful for us as a committee to understand all of the positive outcomes from these projects, but to have a complete picture to also understand some of those negative externalities that could come from these projects. And then is the bang for the buck, like Andrew Perkey has pointed out, is that worth the trade-off to not funding some of the other habitat improvement projects? We have consistently seen really good projects that have gone unfunded because we just can't fund everything. So it will be a competitive process. The other question I have for you, Spencer, is around permanence. So if for 1 year we pay 2 or 3 irrigators to withhold a portion of their water, put it back in the stream, what is the long-term benefit of, 1 or 2 seasons of putting some water back in that creek?
Frankly, not a whole lot, unfortunately. The objective here is to start with baby steps, start with those 1-year agreements, build them to multi-year agreements, and then ultimately hope for a long-term or ideally a permanent transfer in stream. Also based not only on a single irrigator, but like you mentioned, a cluster of irrigators. So you really are impactful on that stream. The last thing you want is a shotgun approach dealing with single irrigators for short periods of time over a whole basin. You really want to focus in and prioritize on a specific set of streams and irrigators on those streams and work long and hard to achieve permanent flow restoration there. But it takes time.
Yeah, that's helpful, Spencer. And I guess then my next question ends up being, so you have basically made a commitment in that watershed to have to continue those annual agreements, or you kind of lose the impact of the projects that you've already funded. So we have to be careful that we're not setting ourselves up to have to dedicate annual funding over and over in order to maintain the efficacy of the projects. And then that would be only within that one river. And we are tasked with a whole state of uplift here. So I think we just need to keep in mind the geography of where we're providing uplift, and do our commitments in project year one for annual agreements, what does that mean, or what are the implications for future funding? And are we signing ourselves up to committing to have to fund those or lose all the good work provided? I think there'll be really interesting discussions as we see projects coming in. Andrew Perky.
Yeah, just Joe's comment inspired me to think about what Scott brought up earlier, which is where we as a group would want to support this. And Chad, this gets to your point too. Where's the uplift for the species covered under this committee's interests? And I'm thinking of a lot of the areas where we have funded projects are heavily forested, where there's a connection between the river habitat and forest habitat, not places like the Chihuacan Marsh or in Lake Abert, or even places like the Klamath Marsh. And in those places, you typically have steeper watersheds. You don't have those wetland marsh complex nearly as much, and you really are focused on aquatic species. So it just gets me thinking of, is there an exercise to take the map that Spencer's working on and start overlaying, say, the areas where we have prioritized and or areas where we have funded projects, like where we focused our resources, and start honing in on, okay, I'll just name one of them, the Umpqua. Where are the flow issues in the Umpqua that relate to what we're trying to do as a committee? Just a thought.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Lots to come. I think it'll be interesting to see what types of projects come forward and then how they rank compared to the other projects that we've seen. Any other questions for Spencer or ODFW staff? Okay. Well, Spencer, thank you for joining us and offering this description. I'm sure we will have more questions as we see individual projects being proposed, and hopefully you'll be able to be a resource for us to lean on.
I'd be happy to anytime.
Great. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.
Andy Spirica, do we have anything else? We've got closing comments as our next agenda item, but we are about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Is there anything else that you had in the OAR revisions that you wanted to present?
No. So at this point in time, I would recommend doing a motion and then voting to get these revisions. Is that what you were thinking, Chad?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else on your end.
Nope, that was it. What we showed up on the slide a few minutes ago.
Okay. Well, with that, I would Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just had a question. I'm new to the group here. So I know in the past you had the urgent applications versus the regular, periodic ones, annual ones. With the removal of the urgent, does that mean that applicants can only apply during one time a year, or is there still flexibility there? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's just the regular grant application window.
Okay. And did you experience any issues with people wanting to apply outside of that window and it being an issue, or is that part of the reason why you condensed it?
That's correct, Joe. It really hasn't been utilized in the way that we thought it may, and it just creates a little bit more efficiency for ODFW staff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so with that, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, just speaking to the urgency stuff, Joe and others can chime in too. I think a little bit of it might have come from OCRF did have sort of an emergency swimming lane, if you will. And part of that was because when OCRF started up, the funding was very tentative shall we say. And so there were also some opportunities to take advantage of matching funds that had a time component to it. And I think that's where that idea might have been spawned, so to speak. But I would agree with the direction we're going. The urgent grant swimming lane creates more invitation for complicating everybody's life than it's really worth. So I think we're in a good spot with it. But that might have been partly where it came from initially.
That's helpful background, Mark. Thanks for chiming in. Scott.
Oh, just another quick retread of something that I was new to the committee, I think, when I first reviewed the original proposed edits to this, and I brought up the one about land acquisition. And I think at that time I understood it. There was no desire to take forest land out of production. I totally get that. Would there be interest in adding a partial sentence to what's existing there now to allow exchanges that would not take forest land out of production, but wouldn't perhaps allow willing landowners with a riparian parcel to exchange for something of an upslope nature that's more manageable? And I'm putting my former BLM hat on and scattered parcels that were management nightmares that we had no legal access to, that the BLM was always looking to get rid of those because they had no access to them, and thinking there's opportunity for a win-win. It's probably rare, but just throwing that out for consideration or thought, discussion.
Yeah, Scott, that has all been discussed ad nauseum at this point. And so really the revisions that we're discussing today are the ones that are in addition to the ones we have already talked about and proposed and recommended to commission. There was an engagement component that prevented commission from adopting those prior. While they still are in the revision process, we're looking to insert the water project language that will be required by the governor's office while it's still open. But as far as acquisitions and transactions, I think my recommendation would be that we just move forward with what we have. Again, that has been discussed ad nauseum.
I had a feeling that ship had sailed, but again, it was before I came on, so I wanted to, I hate leaving good projects on the table, so I had to bring it up again. So.
Fair enough. So I guess at this point, I would entertain a motion to recommend to adopt the OAR revisions and recommend that to ODFW Commission. Mark?
Yeah, so move that we approve the OARs as amended here and forward it on to the commission.
Very good.
I second that.
Okay. Andrew Perkey seconds. Fran, you're a second and a half, a third almost.
Yes, because I wasn't fast enough. I was trying to be polite.
You were being polite, Fran. I wasn't being polite.
I noticed. No, you're fine, Andrew. I thought that was great. It's good. Thank you.
Wonderful. So Andy, at this point, will you lead us through a roll call vote?
Yes. I'll call off your name. Please respond yay or nay in support of the motion. Chad Washington.
Yay.
Joe Liebersite.
Yay.
Scott Lightcap.
Yay.
Fran Cafferata.
Yay.
Andrew Perkey.
Yay.
Mark Stern.
Yay.
I don't believe Courtney's in attendance today. I didn't see them come on. All right. No. Motion carries. Back to you, Chad.
Great. I would just like to point out that it's another successful unanimous vote by the committee. It tends to be the way things go. Hopefully that's due to the amount of discussion and collegiality. So that's great. With that, before we close, we have a few members that are going to be coming off of the committee, and I just want to open it up if either Fran or Andrew would like to offer any words. So Fran, we'll start with you.
I was going to say, I bet you that Andrew's going to suggest I go first. Yeah, so this is my last meeting. My term ends, I think, at the very end of August, but we're not having an August meeting. And even if we are, I know that the date for that conflicts with a client meeting I have to do. So this is my last meeting. And when we first started this, it was, oh my goodness, so much challenge and so much discussion. And I really enjoyed that process. I learned a lot from those folks that were involved during that time, and just appreciate how thoughtful and respectful this group has been. It's been a real pleasure to work with all of you, and a unique opportunity for something I've never really been involved with before. So I appreciate all that, and I'll be watching the process from afar, and hopefully maybe now thinking about maybe putting some grant applications in. So keep a lookout for my name buried somewhere in it all. So, and then for folks who are newer and didn't get a chance to work with you, my voice was for the small woodland owners. And so Andy and Chad will be working with the new OSWA, Oregon Small Woodland Association Executive Director, to find a good replacement to join you all in the coming months. So thanks for the chance to be here. All you, Andrew.
Thank you, Fran. Andy, when is our next meeting?
So we will have an August meeting, and I appreciate the kind words, Fran. We do have you guys to the end of September. So
No, end of September, beg your pardon.
Hopefully
Sorry.
we'll catch you guys in the September meeting also.
No, I'll be out of town.
Yeah, and when is this? Because I'm going to be gone in the September meeting, but I don't think I'll be gone for the August meeting. When's the August meeting?
The 12th of August.
Okay, then I can say my goodbye then.
You could save yours, but yeah, I am. This is still my actual last meeting. So sorry.
But Andy, I do believe that I'll miss the September meeting, which is like the 10th or 11th, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Andy, I'll also miss the September meeting, which is why we had at one point suggested maybe postponing the September meeting, but we can revisit that.
We'll chat about it.
Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'll introduce myself, although I know most, if not all of you, but Sarah Rye from the Acting Deputy Director, normally the Habitat Division Administrator, and just wanted to say my thank you to you, Fran, and then eventually I'll do the same to you, Andrew. But just as kind of OG committee members with us from the beginning, and when we were kind of getting everything established, there was so much work that went into that, an inordinate amount of work for a volunteer committee member to stand up a brand new committee. And I just want to honor and acknowledge that that is above and beyond what we normally ask of volunteer committee members. And I just think we're just up and running, and things are flowing and working, and we're delivering conservation out there on the ground on private forests and in accordance with the Accord. And that's in large part a credit to you all and all the work that you put into this. So thanks for all the blood, sweat, and tears, and your, like, the way this goes for everyone, but the way you sort of showed up, like, in service of the committee's purpose and in trying to reach collective decisions. You didn't always have to agree on everything, but you showed up willing to kind of deliberate publicly and make a decision publicly. And that's what this is all about. So just want to thank you for all the time and effort and volunteerism involved in that. And then I also just wanted to give a shout out to Jessica Watson, because I think this will be her last private PFA advisory committee meeting with you all, unless we somehow do something in coastal environments. But Jessica was the acting Habitat Division Administrator for me these last 6 months and was behind the scenes really helping to support Andy. And so Jessica, just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you for stepping in and coming up to speed really quickly, and appreciate you.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks all for being so welcoming during this rotation. I really appreciated getting to know each and every one of you and learn more about all of the amazing projects that you are supporting.
Excellent. Well, Fran, sincere thank you. I've always appreciated your exceptional professionalism, your collegiality, your focus on the covered species. It's just a pleasure to have served with you on this committee, so thank you for your time. And Jessica, thank you as well. It's been incredible to see how quickly you're able to wrap your mind around this complicated grant program and immediately be giving us benefits from day one. I appreciated the way that you ran our in-person meetings and helped support the committee as we gave $10 million out for on-the-ground conservation. So thank you so much. It's great to get to know you as well. And with that, I'd open it up for any other closing comments from the rest of the committee. All right. Oh, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just second the thanks to Fran and Andrew, into the future, and Jessica for the work you've done the last 6 months for all of us. So thank you for that. And Chad, I think you've tracked it pretty closely in the legislative session, or maybe Sarah and Jessica have too. Just might be helpful to have a brief update on what the legislature did relative to our funding going forward.
Yeah, I did track that pretty closely, but Jessica, if we could have another ask of you, it would be wonderful if you could provide with perspective.
Yeah, so the budget that was passed did have the $10 million for the PFA grant program. As I mentioned in the last update, that is, and we talked about, it's less than the 20 million, but still is 10 million additional for the next biennium. And Chad, if you want to add anything to that, but really appreciated everyone's support and interest as that budget, our agency budget, moved forward through the legislative process this biennium.
That's great. Thank you, Jessica. The only thing that I would add is once we get an HCP in place, that the contributions by private timber industry increase to $5 million a biennium. So once the HCP is in place, there'll be more timber dollars funding this program. We're excited for the opportunity to do that. All right. Any other closing comments? Andrew Perkey, I didn't thank you because I think we might see you on another meeting, but if we do not, then thank you so much for all that you've brought to this committee. Your experience with water projects has been invaluable. And although you may not be a committee member past September, you will certainly be getting phone calls from the committee members about details about water rights in the West. Turns out it's kind of a complicated subject.
For sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And yeah, I'll save my goodbye till August.
Wonderful. That sounds great. Well, thank you all for your time and attention. I think with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.